This lens is so good, I bought it twice. It's okay, it's broke. This is the Olympus 9-18 f4 to 5.6. There's two versions of this lens. We have the Olympus version, which is the older one. I believe it came out in 2010, which you can pick up for around £250 used. There's also a rebranded OM system version, which as far as I can tell is literally just a rebranded version. Aesthetically it looks a little bit different and you get a fancier lens hood and it's like 600 quid. So obviously, cheapskate that I am very much in the buy the older version camp. So here are some of my favourite images with this lens. I've had it since 2017 and it's been on many an adventure with me. Some of these images are taken with the beautiful Lumix G7 and the Olympus Pen F. It's the loudest bike ever. And also a few from the G100 as well. So overall, Pen F aside, a very budget sort of setup, and I think the results are great. Believe it or not, these images were taken just one day apart. We did the Angel's Landing hike in Zion National Park, and by the time we got to our log cabins, it was snowing. It was such a strange place and such a weird experience. And then the day after, I got sunburnt. Very confusing. So while this lens isn't in any way weather sealed, it did manage a little bit of drizzle, it managed the dust on the trails, and I did take it out in the snow. Oh, I also took it up Mount Etna as well, so double snow. Now, while I wouldn't want to take it out in the rain, I do think it did okay, all things considered. Let's talk about the size and weight. It's only 155 grams, which for such a wide angle lens is absolutely crazy. So that's like amazing. It's the lightest and smallest wide angle lens on the whole Micro Four Thirds system. But the payoff is it's plastic, fantastic, and I mean it is very plasticky. At 155 grams, it's basically just plastic and So there's pros and cons to this, of course. I use it for hiking and travel and a just-in-case sort of lens, so it weighs nothing in my bag. So I see it as more of a benefit than a hindrance. So it is one of these perplexing lenses where anything that is a pro could also be a con depending on your individual situation. Now the size, you might think, is an instant win, right? Because Micro Four Thirds for me, and presumably you, is all about having some compact kit that really does a great job. But the con of this is it has a little lever that you have to sort of open and close the lens with. And there's been more than one occasion where I've just put the camera to my eye and completely forgot to sort of unlock the lens. So the best practice for me is if I'm out and about with the lens, I will just leave the lever open so that I don't have to do that every time. As ever with this lens, pros and cons. So here are a few examples to show you the range that this lens covered. I think it is very, very versatile. So this is 9mm, and then from the exact same spot, it's zoomed in as much as it can to 18mm. And here again, we have 9mm versus 18mm. So when you are out and about with this lens, you can get the ultra wide shots as well as more conventional ones. So as I said at the beginning, this lens is so good I bought it twice. This first copy I used to actual death. It died in Madeira when I was on a hike, and I don't think it's a common fault with this lens, I just think I got unlucky. And there's a ribbon problem where when I connect it to the camera, it's just like, it's not connected, please take it off, and it just won't work at all. From what I can gather online, the cost of getting it replaced was about as much as buying it again, so that's how I ended up with two. And while I do think this lens is very, very plastic fantastic, I don't actually think it's flimsily made. I think it has withstood a lot of test and pressure in my usage with it, and I don't think that the ribbon problem that I had with my first copy is indicative of the lens in general. I just got unlucky. So this review video gave me a perfect opportunity to take a walk down memory lane. I went right through my archives all the way back to 2017, and I decided to re-edit some of my favourite images. I think this is a great practice for any photographer to do because I think style changes a lot from year to year and your tastes will change as well. I think I'm going to hold my hands up and say I'm very guilty of over-editing in the past, and I much prefer my cleaner style now. So aside from, the lens review, a photography tip in general is always keep backups of your RAW files. Don't just rely on the JPEGs. And if you want to see how far you've progressed in your editing, perhaps look at some older RAW files and see if you can do a better job of them now. These re-edits were using my Sunset City preset, which is number 2 in the City Escape pack, if you're wondering. Link in the description. So what about competitors? On the Olympus side, we have the 7-14 f2.8 and also the 8-25 Pro lens, which is f4 constant. This is literally twice the weight of the 9-18. I'll put the sort of comparison on screen. But of course, because it is a Pro lens, it is weather sealed and has a full metal build quality. But it's also so much more expensive as well. And on the Lumix side, we have the 7-14 f4 and then the Lumix Leica 8-18, which is f2.8 to f4. And I've reviewed that on this channel, I'll put it in the description. And it's a beautiful, beautiful lens, but at 315 grams, it's built like a blooming tank. So given the choice between that lens and the 9-18, I still always pick the 9-18. Though I do wish it was weather sealed. So we do have the rebadged version from OM System and we do have the original version as well. I do think the original version is much better value for money and you can find it used for a really good affordable price. The first place I would check is MPB, who have kindly sponsored this video. And if you don't know, MPB are the world's biggest online platform for buying, selling and trading your used camera equipment. Selling can be a great opportunity to try something new and try a new piece of equipment for the first time. If you've never really tried wide-angle photography, for example, I think this Olympus lens might be a great place to start. Selling is super easy. You don't even need a printer, and you don't even need to leave your house. You can box everything up once you've got your quote from the website, and it will get picked up from your door, and then once they've inspected it and made sure that everything is as it says, you will get the money straight into your bank. MPB have been a long-term supporter of this channel and I get messages all the time from you guys telling me what you've bought, what you've sold, how great the service is, and that's my experience with MPB as well. I use them a heck of a lot on this channel, as you can imagine. I do review a lot of used gear. So if you are looking to try something new and want to sell a piece of existing equipment with MPB, use the links below, and thank you once again to them for sponsoring this video. Now it might sound like only a small thing because all of those focal ranges sound quite similar, but I think the 9-18 is also my favourite combination when it comes to versatility. At the 9mm, we have a beautiful, crisp, wide-angle rectilinear shot, as you would hope, but at the long end, we have a 36mm full-frame equivalent, so it's a very standard focal length. Going down steps. I can't multitask. One thing that I love about this lens is I never take it off when it's on because it's got that much range. It's really, really versatile. At the 9mm end, it is at its sharpest in my experience, and that's where you'd want it to shine because that's probably what you're buying the lens for. And at the 18 side, the long side, we do get a little bit of a fall off in sharpness at the edges, but it's more than manageable. And I think if the size and the weight and the affordability speak to you, then it's a small price to pay. I also really enjoy that it has a flat front element. Some of these competitor choices and some of the prime lens choices have domed front elements, and this can cause a multitude of problems. First of all, it can make adding filters quite tricky, and also it can sort of change the way that the flares look when the light hits. You get some nice starburst effect with this 9-18 because of that flat front element, and I find it a lot more pleasing than some of the competitors that I've tried. So, aside from this lens not being the most robust in the world, and also not the sharpest at the long end, and also not weather sealed, and also a bit temperamental, and quite annoying with the leather thingy, I still will recommend this lens to anyone because I've used it extensively in the past 7 years, and have I took some of my favourite photos of all time with this lens? And the answer is blooming yes. And I think that's what matters at the end of the day. So, what do you think? Do you think this earns the Best Worst Micro Four Thirds lens award, or do you have some other candidates? Let me know below, and check out some videos with some other Micro Four Thirds lens reviews next.